Here we are again. Welcome one, welcome all. Junk Shop Library channel, links in the description below. As we speak, it is Sunday, the 28th. The 28th? Not quite yet. The 8th of May, the year of our Lord, 2022. It's Mother's Day. Happy Mother's Day to all to whom that's relevant. And it's the last Mother's Day that I'll be able to say what I'm about to say. Happy Mother's Day to everyone who decided it would be relevant to them. We all know what I'm talking about. The leaked draft of the Supreme Court's interesting little decision. So, while this is not officially a sponsored video, this video is brought to you today by the American Republican Party. The reason why you get to sit here, if you're still watching at this point, and listen to yet another white AMAB person run off at the mouth about abortion. I've been thinking about this. Is it even a good idea for me to talk about this? I myself am not physically capable of becoming pregnant. So why should I talk about it? And then this afternoon, well, technically this morning, because it was all of about 20 minutes ago, I realized that's how they get us. And that perspective is one of the multitudinous reasons why it often seems like leftists in general and Democrats in particular never seem to be able to get anything done. Because we sit around navel gazing too much. We spend too much time worried about the optics. Is it my place to talk about this issue? Yes. Why? Because it's a human issue. Now, I'm not going to sit here and catastrophize about the precedent this sets. People like me talking about issues. And I'm not going to sit here catastrophizing about the precedent this sets, the legal ramifications of the decision should the decision become final, which, let's face it, we know it's going to be. Because that's not helpful. That doesn't do anything in the moment. Will it lead to unpleasantness down the road for other groups of people? Well, yeah. Is that what we need to be talking about now? I personally am not convinced that it is. What we've got here is a situation in which supremely privileged members of one group of people are making life-altering and life-threatening choices for and on behalf of an entirely different group of people to which they themselves do not belong, and enshrining those decisions into law. I personally, and myself, that's why I haven't called anybody by name who's in the chat. That's why nobody's name is on the screen but mine. I, myself, personally, take the pro-abortion perspective. Not a lot of folks running around out there getting abortions because they woke up that morning and felt like it, or decided it would be fun. It's not fun. It's a medical procedure. Medical procedures kind of definitionally are not fun. By and large, exceptions aside, blah, 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 blah. The decision that a bunch of rich, old, white, cis men and Amy Coney Barrett have made is going to cost people their health, their mental well-being, and their fucking lives. And it's not that they don't care. It's that they want it that way and did it on purpose. This book on psychology I read back in college, and I do not remember the name of it. I remember the cover was a deep shade of green, but it was in a library binding, so who knows what it originally was. But there was a line in there, something about law being the enactment of behaviors socially sanctioned by people who would not otherwise be sanctioned to do so. The example they used was, well, there's a handful, but one was murder. If the state decides to deprive you of your life as the penalty for something you did or planned to do, that is an execution. If I do that, we call that murder. The situation we're in right now, where we are literally on the brink of the overturning of 50 years of legal precedent and of something that at least 3 of the people that are making the decision stated on camera under oath to Congress was settled law. This situation is why representation and representation in government is so wildly important. It was recently announced who the next White House press secretary will be. And I do not remember her name because this connection I just made off the top of my head, which is kind of how we roll around here. And so I didn't think to look it up beforehand. She's a woman of color. She's an openly queer woman of color. First one. 200 odd years of country, and who knows how long we've had a press secretary. Got a non-white one in 2022. Representation is important. And not just for optics. Its lack gets people killed. Rich white Christian fuckers who decide that their way is not only best, but only valid way, the best, are legislating people out of existence, right, left, and sideways, because their existence makes them feel icky. I remember that perspective. Because it was mine. Thankfully, I was not making laws when I was 15. Now, if you've made it this long into the video and you still disagree, one of a couple of things is going on. Either you're harvesting, or you're hoping that this was some kind of devil's advocate thing. If the former, well, that's going to be interesting. If the latter, sorry to disappoint. Everyone who can, for whom it is even marginally safe to do so, needs to speak up in whatever way they can. even if the only way they can is pushing a blue button rather than a red button come November. There are more of us than there are of them. Those on the left significantly outnumber those on the right. And the closer to center you draw that line, the greater the proportion becomes. Because the rabid, foaming, self loathing, other hating extremist wing of the right is a fringe group. But the way fringe groups win is by browbeating and terrifying everyone else into submission and then legislating them out of existence. We can't let them win. I more or less pass. White. I was born with the genital configuration that I was. I don't have any visible disabilities. I will more or less be more or less okay. And so will a lot of people who are keeping their mouths shut right now, like I was very tempted to do, because I felt that it was not my place. You know whose place it isn't either? Fucking Alitos. Fucking Barrett's. Fucking anybody who's not involved in the choice to have the procedure, which is one person, and that is the person who's going to be undergoing the procedure. Making medical decisions for other people, except in circumstances when the other person is, to the point where, blah, 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 power of attorney, blah, 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 is inappropriate. The nut jobs on the right are going to shoot their mouths off about this and vote about this. Whether the folks on the left talk about it or vote about it or not. And if those of us on the left sit around in our little private groups and around the conference tables of our minds, trying to hash out whether we should speak about it, who we should vote for, whether we should vote, we will lose. Like we did in the previous presidential election. Vote for who you like in the primaries. Winnow out things. But if you got a blue button and a red button, and then an other option, push the blue button. Because if you do anything else, including not push a button at all, it's not just that you are complicit, you are doing active harm. Now, the right has no problem with doing harm and doing so openly and gleefully. It has become their brand. It is stand up and be counted time. Because they've been standing up and been counted for a minute. Meanwhile, entirely too many of us have been sitting around with our thumbs up our asses, stroking our chins and wondering about the optics of weighing in on such a fraught issue. Then we blink and we wonder why only the other side is getting heard and voted for and legislating. So, the long and the short of it is, while this isn't normally the sort of thing we do here in the library, what's the refrain? Stand against hate. Do not be mistaken. That is where we are right now. The extremist fringe of the right wing that is essentially built on fear and hatred of the other has been in power for a very long time and is gaining ground. And the longer we on the left sit around and peruse our thoughts and wonder whether it is appropriate for us to weigh in on this issue or in this moment, the more time they have to speak up and speak out and flood public opinion and contaminate jury pools. There's a lot going on right now. Some people seem to have forgotten, but there's still a little bit of a pandemic on. The economy's not exactly booming. Minority rights of every stripe are under attack in virtually every corner of the world. And the marathon march toward fascism is rapidly picking up speed everywhere. I've never seen as many people from as many walks of life in as many corners of the world wrapped at the Canadian prime ministerial election as this past one. Thankfully, that one went okay. So, speak up. Speak out. And amplify the voices that need amplifying. The longer we keep reposting the bigoted ramblings of somebody who wrote some books once that some people liked and adding our punchline, the more we are, at one level, spreading the bad ideas. It's one thing to hold bad ideas up and criticize and critique and even mock them. And I realize I'm kind of flying in the face of what I'm actually saying here. But things need to be said. Unique things need to be said. Independent perspectives need to be heard. Speak up. Speak out. And stand against hate. Because the other side is speaking up. And they've made it very clear where they stand. The days of the protest vote are done, at least for now. Vote. Damn you. Because they will. and nobody's trying to legislate them out of existence or tell them what medical procedures, life-saving or otherwise, they are legally allowed to have. That's their bag. That's what they are doing. It's just coffee. I'm not going to be here all day. Talk to the people you know. And as the post that's been going around says something about, if you don't know any people who have had abortions, that's on you. And you need to work on being a better person. Sort of person people feel safe to tell things to. I, myself personally, don't want anyone else legislating what medical procedures I may have. Neither does Samuel Alito. Neither does Amy Coney Barrett. And I'm not looking to inflict my personal convictions about what is moral or medically necessary on them. That's their bag. That's what the right is doing. I don't know that this perspective I see in some corners that this is a deliberate genocide. I don't know that that is correct. I don't pretend to read minds. But it will get people killed. In a number of ways, at a number of hands, for a variety of reasons. And they're doing it on purpose. I'm going to tell a quick story. I'm not going to tell any personal details. And it's not about someone that anyone I see in the chat right now, or anyone who's ever going to see this video, knows personally. Major trigger warning here. I will make this gesture again when the story is done. It is an abortion anecdote and an example of how this sort of thing can go wildly wrong. If this is not something you wish to hear, or something it is not safe for you to hear, please mute or please leave. Trigger warning goes here. Ten or 15 years ago, I knew a young lady who found herself in a family way. She was living at home with her parents. Her parents were wildly conservative, as were the parents of the person by whom she came to be pregnant. There were only three options, and it was neither advisable nor safe, for a variety of reasons, to carry the pregnancy to term, and it was neither feasible nor safe to go and have an abortion. So they elected to do something else, and I'm not going to go into the details. I know entirely too many of them, and it haunts me. The pregnancy did not come to term, and a few years later, when I heard the story, she was fine, and a few years later, when we fell out of touch, she was still fine. Like I said, that was a decade ago. So this is not a person who is in my life or anyone I could reach out to about this. The refrain, rightly made, is that you can't ban, you can't end abortions. All you can do is legislate away the accessibility of safe ones. People can, and people will. Stop pregnancies from coming to term. It is the responsibility of folks with consciences to ensure that anyone who needs or wants one, for any or no reason, can get a safe one legally. Because otherwise, people will do things or elect to have things done to them that are not safe, that are not legal, and that create mental and physical trauma. So what's the point? Why has a white person with a penis been rambling for 40 minutes about this topic? Because everybody should. The extremists on the right will shoot off their mouths about this till the fucking cows come home. While we sit around and ponder whether it's advisable from an optics perspective to speak our words. Just fucking say it. We had 5 decades of legal and social and medical precedent and case law that said it was legal to have a medical procedure. And now we've not so much. Vote. Vote or be damned to you. And also start building networks. There's a time, not all that long ago, when it was illegal to send contraceptives through the mail for moral reasons. People did it anyway. There wasn't much in the way of x-ray machines or forensic accounting back then. I do not and cannot, in good conscience or safety, propose any currently or futurely illegal activity. But there is a non-zero probability of a sort of weird next gen underground railroady kind of situation being necessary. And that little bit of catastrophizing aside, we do have a little bit of a election coming up. And I know I keep coming back around to this, but I'm starting to hear a lot of people talking about protest votes and sitting it out and picketing instead. And it's making me remember a certain recent presidential election that turned out not to go well. Speak up. Speak out. And stand against hate. Because we know where this will go otherwise. And how? Because we've fucking been there before. not all that long ago.